Let's take a look at an introduction to leadership. This course is about what it takes to lead. Everyone, at some time in life, is asked to be a leader, whether to lead a classroom discussion, coach a children's soccer team, or direct a fundraising campaign. Many situations require leadership. Leadership is a mutual influence process involving both leaders and followers. But in every leadership situation, expectations and demands are placed upon one or more individuals to initiate and take responsibility for a decision, an event, or another need. A leader may have a high profile, like an elected official, or a low profile, like a volunteer at Big Brothers and Big Sisters. But in every situation, leadership demands are placed on the individual who's the leader. Being a leader is challenging, exciting, and rewarding, and carries with it many responsibilities. A trait is a distinguishing quantity of an individual. Defining leadership as a trait means that each individual brings to the table certain qualities that influence the way they lead. Some leaders are confident, some are decisive, and still others are outgoing and sociable. Saying that leadership is a trait places a great deal of emphasis on the leader and on the leader's special gifts. It often follows the expressed belief that leadership is an innate rather than learned skill. Some argue that focusing on traits makes leadership an elitist enterprise because it implies that only a few people with special talents will lead. Although there may be some truth to this argument, it can also be argued that all of us are born with a wide array of unique traits, many of which can have a positive impact on leadership. It may also be possible to modify or change some traits. Through the years, researchers have identified a multitude of traits that are associated with leadership. Although there are many important leadership traits, what's most important for leaders is having the required traits that a particular situation demands. Effective leadership results when the leader engages the right traits in the right place at the right time. A person who has leadership ability is able to be a leader. That is, they have the capacity to lead. While the term ability frequently refers to a natural capacity, ability can be acquired. Similarly, some people have the natural physical ability to excel in a sport, while others develop their athletic capacity through exercise and practice. In leadership, some people have the natural ability to lead, while others develop their leadership abilities through hard work and practice. It's an individual's ability that create outstanding leadership. Conceptualized as a skill, leadership is a competency developed to accomplish a task effectively. Skilled leaders are competent. They know what they need to do and they know how to do it. Describing leadership as a skill makes leadership available to everyone because skills are competencies that people can learn and develop. Even without natural leadership ability, people can improve their leadership with practice, instruction, and feedback from others. Viewed as a skill, leadership can be studied and learned. If you're capable of learning from an experience, you can acquire leadership. Leadership is also a behavior. It's what leaders do when they're in a leadership role. The behavioral dimension is concerned with how leaders act towards others in various situations. Unlike traits, abilities, and skills, leadership behaviors are observable. When someone leads, we see that person's leadership behavior. Research on leadership has shown that leaders engage primarily in two kinds of general behaviors: task behaviors and process behaviors. Task behaviors are used by leaders to get the job done. A leader prepares an agenda for a meeting. Relationship or process behaviors are used by leaders to help people feel comfortable with other group members and at ease in situations in which they find themselves. A leader helps individuals in a group feel included. Since leadership requires both task and process behaviors, the challenge for leaders is to know the best way to combine them in their efforts to reach a goal. Another and somewhat unusual way to think about leadership is as a relationship. From a relational perspective, leadership is centered on the communication between leaders and followers rather than the unique qualities of a leader. Thought as a relationship, leadership becomes a process of collaboration that occurs between leaders and followers. A leader affects and is affected by followers, and both leaders and followers are affected in turn by the situation that surrounds them. This approach emphasizes that leadership is an interactive event. In a traditional leadership way, authority is often top down, and the interactive type of leadership, authority and influence are shared. When leadership is defined in this manner, it becomes available to everyone. Thinking of leadership as a relationship suggests that leaders must include followers in their interests in the process. A leader needs to be fully aware of followers and followers' interests, ideas, positions, attitudes, and motivation. Stressing mutuality lessens the possibility that leaders might act towards followers in ways that are forced or unethical. Civic engagement entails the sense of personal responsibility individuals should feel to uphold their obligations as part of any community. Leadership is an influence process. Defining leadership as an influence process means that it's not a trait or an ability that resides in the leader, but rather an interactive event that occurs between the leader and followers. Influence is central to the process of leadership because leaders affect followers. Leaders direct their energies towards influencing individuals to achieve something together. Stressing common goals gives leadership an ethical dimension because it lessens the possibility that leaders might act towards followers in ways that use coercion or that are unethical. Leadership is a collective effort and is about making a difference. In explaining what leadership is, it's important to make a distinction between leadership and management. Leadership and management are not the same. Management emerged out of the industrialization of work in the early 20th century, and its purpose is to structure and coordinate various functions within organizations. In contrast, leadership has been studied for thousands of years across multiple contexts: politics, the military, religion, and much more. Frederick Taylor was a key figure in the development of management theory. At the turn of the 20th century, Taylor pioneered the concept of the scientific management of labor. This involved measuring every detail of a worker's tasks to make work more efficient, consistent, and predictable. According to Taylor, the responsibility of workers was to provide the labor, and the responsibilities of managers were to design the one best way for each task to be done, and then train, monitor, and evaluate each worker. Management theory was further developed by Chester Bernard, whose work in the areas of cooperation and authority helps us to understand how management and leadership can sometimes overlap. Bernard, in 1938, conceptualized two types of authority: authority of position and authority of leadership. Authority of position is the power to direct the work of an individual by someone in a higher position in an organization structure. Authority of leadership is based not on position, but ascribed to those in the organization who have the knowledge and ability needed for a task. Bernard argued that both types were necessary for organizations to function well. Both leadership and management involve influence, but leadership is about seeking constructive change and management is about establishing order. We probably all wonder at the differences in leadership around the world. Why do some countries gravitate towards the distributed leadership of a democracy, while others seem content with the hierarchical leadership of a monarchy or dictatorship? The concepts of leadership outlined here are from an American perspective. If you were to travel to nations around the world, you would no doubt encounter different views of leadership specific to those ethnic and political cultures. In 2004, Robert J. House led a group of 160 researchers in an ambitious study to increase our understanding of the impact culture has had on leadership effectiveness. The Global Leadership and Organizational Behavior Effectiveness Studies drew on the input of 17,000 people in 62 countries in determining how leadership varies across the world. Among the many findings generated by the Globe studies was the identification of positive and negative leadership characteristics that are universally accepted worldwide. It's important to note That the same characteristics and behaviors that distinguish leadership can also be used by leaders in non positive ways. The dark side of leadership is the destructive side of leadership, where a leader uses his or her influence or power for personal ends. Leaders are toxic, where their leadership leaves their followers worse off than they found them, often violating the basic human rights of others and playing to followers' best fears. The meaning of leadership is complex and includes many dimensions. For some people, leadership is a trait or ability. For others, it's a skill or a behavior. And for still others, it's a relationship or a process. In reality, leadership probably includes components of all of these dimensions. Each dimension explains a facet of leadership. How you think about leadership will strongly influence your practice of leadership. There's a strong demand for effective leadership in society today. This demand exists at the local and community levels, as well as at the national level in this country and abroad. People feel the need for leadership in all aspects of their lives. They want leaders in their personal lives, at school, at work, and even in their spiritual lives. Everywhere you turn, people are expressing a need for strong leadership. When people ask for leadership in a particular situation, it's not always exactly clear what they want. For the most part, however, they want effective leadership. Effective leadership is intended influence that creates change for the greater good. Leadership uses positive means to achieve positive outcomes. People want leaders who listen and understand their needs and who can relate to their circumstances. The challenge for each of us is to be prepared to lead when we're asked.